We welcome you to the high banks of Auto Club Speedway here, the continuation of the G-Force Sim Racing Series, the Grand National Series, as we are here at the Auto Club Speedway in the Western United States, getting ready for 75 laps of racing. We first, though, have to find out who's going to be starting where with qualifying. I'm Seth Cole alongside Samuel Dyer, and Sam, it's the longest circuit that these drivers have been at so far this season, so how do they tackle Auto Club here today?
Yeah, it's going to be one of the better tracks to see what the drivers can utilize with the draft. We haven't been able to see really what the draft is like with a lot of these drivers. The biggest track that we've seen so far is the mile-and-a-half courses, where we've been seeing Gerald Campbell dominate, getting both those wins there. And it's a question to see who's going to be in survival mode. We've seen a lot of carnage recently, and excited to see if some drivers are able to, with the extra space here at Auto Club, able to hold on to their car a little bit better, or if we're going to be seeing even bigger ones, and even maybe the big one coming here.
Of course, you mentioned about Gerald Campbell and the tear that he's been on, but a couple of drivers in the last couple of weeks, we've seen them go to victory lane for the first time. Blaine Atkin about 3 weeks ago, and then we had Jeff Green go to victory lane at Bristol. And then last week, Bo Brady finally was able to end the winless streak, taking the checkers at Phoenix. So, with Auto Club kind of being put into that super speedway category, do we see another first-time winner here today?
It's extremely possible to be seeing a first-time winner here. I mean, looking at some of the drivers that haven't won so far this season that have the potential. I mean, we've got a lot of newcomers coming in of Shane Terry and Bronson Stafford. Those are drivers that I've seen be quick in other leagues. Excited to see what speed they're going to be having. As Shane Terry, and he was extremely close last week. Almost had a chance to run down Bo Brady and almost steal a win last week, and now we're going to be seeing some other drivers. John Whitendorf, I think another one of those drivers that we saw quick in other leagues that we've seen in other series, looks quick at the 2-mile courses, could be another face to watch out for.
Much like we've had in the past couple of weeks, a number of drivers in the field that are going to be making their first starts. I would assume that Auto Club is one of those tracks that you come to. It'd be a lot easier to adapt not only to the track, but to the racing style. But just based on the fact we're with these ARCA cars, and we've seen in the last couple of weeks how a lot of drivers really have to deal with the loose sensation with the lower spoiler on these machines. Do we see them having to struggle with that here today at Auto Club?
Yeah, and the loose sensation has really been prevalent coming out of turn number 4, coming in, and a lot of drivers getting loose and almost hitting that inside pit wall. And I think that's going to be a spot we're going to be seeing most of this race is out of 4. Out of 2, also another spot to watch out for, but there's a lot more area to really try to save your car on the apron comparatively to what the infield is going to be like.
Now, obviously, as you can see with these shots we've got here of Auto Club, group qualifying currently underway, you can see that there are 5 grooves there heading into turn 3. Do we see all those grooves being utilized, or at least a number of them? Do we see a multi-groove type race here today, or is there one line that you've seen these drivers prefer more so in practice?
I think during the straightaways, all 5 grooves, even the apron, a possibility to be used here today. But through the corners, it looks like it's going to mainly be those bottom 3 grooves that we're going to be seeing a lot of the action. Mainly, it's going to be for the first couple of laps. We're going to be seeing the drivers that are really pushing it, trying to get up front. It's kind of like what Blaine Atkin's been doing all season long, getting that inside lane and just trying to pull away as fast as possible. The drivers are going to be saving their tires, a lot more of the middle groove throughout the start of this race, and then might periodically dip their car lower and lower until they can run down the cars in front of them.
Right now, we've got several names that have jumped up to the top of the board. Gerald Campbell held the pole for a brief moment, but then we had Kyle Johnson jump up to the top. Christopher Morse Jr. had it up till about maybe 3 seconds ago, and now John Whitendorf top of the leaderboard. So right now, it's a lot of one-upsmanship going on here with just a few seconds left in qualifying.
Yeah, the only driver that's on track right now is going to be Anthony Graneri, who is trying to put a lap down, and looking like that is going to be good enough for 11th place as we're waiting for another driver to go out on track. We've got a total of 33 drivers being clocked in and ready for today's race, and only going to be seeing about 20 of them putting a lap down.
And the qualifying session is official. It will indeed be John Whitendorf, who qualifies, I believe, for his first pole of the season. So he'll be leading us to the green alongside of Christopher Morse Jr. Going to take a look here at your starting lineup for tonight's event. And any sleepers that we see here in the field, Sam, perhaps? You know, obviously we've had a couple of sleepers the last couple of weeks at Bristol and at Phoenix with some great performances, but Anybody here in particular you're looking at that maybe we may not normally bring to the forefront, but actually maybe up there inside the top 10 at the end?
I think looking at the drivers that haven't put a lap time down, I think Dallas Myhan and that 41 machine. We're looking at drivers to pick possibly for a win here today. That is my driver that has the really could be our dark horse to win today's race here at Auto Club. 41 machine hasn't had the best qualifying runs, didn't even put a time down here today, but always finds himself at least up in the top 10. Could be a driver that could win here at Auto Club.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. I'm looking here at the last track we were at that at least was close to the configuration of this track, and that would be the 1.5 mile speedway of Las Vegas. A driver that ran really well there was the 00 of Jason Hounshell. We've seen he and his brother Jake be pretty consistent this season, but I kind of think that the bigger tracks is where that 00 is really good. So keep an eye on him because Jason's had a very consistent year, comes into this race right now, currently 8th in the points.
Yeah, and Jason was a new face for us starting off this season, so it really been showing a lot of speed, a lot of pace, and consistency has been there for the 00. And it seems like if one of the Houndshells has trouble, the other one's being pretty successful. And I think right now, Jake Houndshell looking for some rebounds after really the start of the season. The first couple of races went well, but since then, the last about 3 or 4 races has not gone the way of the 02.
Now, most of the tracks we've been to the last couple of weeks, we ended up running 100 laps or more. Here tonight, because this is a 2-mile track, only 75 laps for these drivers this evening. So with that being said, how much of a sense of urgency is there for those drivers mid-pack to the rear of the field to get themselves up to the front?
I think it's more so to set yourself up to be in the top 10. If you're in the top 10, come to the halfway marker and within about 5 to 4 seconds of the cars, of the leader at least, I think you're set up in a pretty good spot. We're looking, if we go green, to go about a pit stop in the middle way of this race. And at the midway point, I think that's when you're going to be seeing a lot more of these drivers pushing it a lot harder. But Bo Brady is that driver that we've been seeing. He's been the driver that usually pits earlier than everyone else and decides to try to have that fresher tire advantage. So later on in the race, he's got that track position. And he finally got the win last week, but he had 2 races in a row where he lost it with 2 laps or less. So we'll see if this 20 machine can get another win.
Well, Gerald Campbell has gone to victory lane twice this season, comes into this race 104 points over our pole sitter John Whitendorf, and looking just to continue a consistent year and just run away with this championship. Whitendorf tonight looking to cut in to that points lead. As 75 laps on tap, the sun's setting here in the western hills of California, and we are ready to go green flag racing at Auto Club.
It's going to be John Whitendorf on the inside for that 33 machine, and then all of them starting to scatter behind, going all the way to the inside. That's going to be the 05 of Blaine Atkin, and here goes Gerald Campbell with a slight block. But dropping back, it's going to be the 3 of Christopher Morris Jr. Oh, there goes Kyle Johnson!
And Kyle Johnson, big wreck in turn 1.
And that's going to be collecting a lot more machines. Robert Kenny involved, also looked like Roth involved. And you hate to see it. Jeff Green also involved. Rocky Boyd. We talked about Jason Houndshell being a driver to watch out for. He's involved in this wreck. Also Dallas Myhan.
Drivers now trying to get themselves turned the right direction, leaving the scene of the accident. And the worst thing about that was it happened so far up at the front of the field with Jeff Green up inside of the top 10. And I think when we go back and look at this replay, obviously here tonight, it's going to be all about tires when the run goes longer in terms of tire wear. But I think at least for these early restarts, it's all going to be about those tires being awfully cool and there not being a whole lot of grip for the rear end of the car going into turn 1.
Yeah. As they are racing back to the line, it's looking like it's going to be John Whitendorf coming across. And once the yellow comes out, it's all about racing back to the line as they're going to be scattering 3 wide back for the battle for 6th place. And that's a factor that we did not expect for these drivers. It was an early caution coming in turn number 1, which was going to allow a lot of these drivers to continue racing on until that yellow officially came out.
Absolutely took us by a little bit by surprise there, as we were already going back to look at the replay here, which we are going to give you. And as mentioned, everything started with Jeff Green. Now, we saw as well Kyle Johnson get out of shape, but he was able to gather it back up. So that wreck that could have taken place up around the 2nd position never happened. This is what actually tore up a lot of good race cars.
I mean, that was a fabulous save by Kyle Johnson, and just away they went behind. Really nowhere for a lot of these drivers to go because you're so clustered up. And already a lot of cars in pit road trying to get damage repair.
There's another car that got involved. I think it might have been the 34 of Robert Kenny. Someone had the whole right front ripped off their machine. And so there were a few other drivers that were collected up in this, getting bits and pieces of the wreck that we didn't originally document.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it, you knew there was some type of carnage was going to happen at some point because of all the 3 wide action. There's plenty of space for it. But yeah, no, that Kyle Johnson incident, Rocky Boyd went flipping in that 77 machine, went completely perpendicular with the ground after the spin. And yeah, just a massive carnage early in this race that's going to be taking a lot of drivers that were needing good days to try to run down Gerald Campbell in top of the points.
So caution out for the first time here tonight early in this one. It actually was not Robert Kenny, the driver that I saw get involved in that wreck. Still trying to figure out who indeed that was. The driver had a 7 on its door, but there is no 7 in the field. Oh, yes, there is a 7 in the field. Maybe it was Jackson McLaren who got a piece of that, but he has not come down pit road, so despite the damage that he may have sustained there, he is not coming down to repair it, and it was indeed that 7 machine there. You can see the right front, actually the left front's got quite a bit of damage as well.
Yeah, also just the hood jacked up in a fashion there for the 7 machine, so you know, some of these drivers thinking they want to stay out. Maybe some of them don't even know how damaged their vehicle is until they start going green. As some drivers, they aren't notified. As you're only in the cockpit of the car, so you're not seeing what the external really looks like unless you have been notified. Hey, you don't have a front bumper, or hey, your front end is pretty dented up. So most of these drivers are going to be running as hard as they can, but there's no fast repair in this league here, Seth. So the drivers that were involved in this wreck, it's all manually trying to get it repaired as fast as possible. Some of them have able to get those repairs done. Right now, still in the pits, Jason Hounshell.
Well, see, and that's why this is actually a huge point in terms of the fact they don't have that fast repair because, number one, even though it was the initial start of this race going down to turn 1, they were still carrying an awful lot of speed, so a lot of those hits were really, really high volatile. You also have the fact that this is maybe, besides Las Vegas, the most highly aerodynamic track that we're going to. You're going to need that straightaway speed for the long front and back straightaway. And if your car is damaged and off the pace, even as early as lap 2, your day could be over in being in the hunt for that win here today.
And that's going to be an early caution that is not officially taken out anyone so far. We said that we were going to have 33 drivers. Benjamin Staple was not able to get gridded, so that 21 machine not starting today's race. Pace car is off. We're getting ready for the green flag, and we're waiting to see who's going to duck on inside and try to make some bold moves here as everyone's kind of getting jacked up at the moment. Green flag back in the air.
Green flag out. We saw earlier with the double file start, we saw Blaine Atkin go all the way down to the apron, which is inbounds. You have to wonder in the closing stages of this race if that's going to be a viable option for drivers that are up there in 2nd, 3rd, 4th if there's a late race restart. As Whitendorf pulls away, Christopher Morris moves into 2nd. The battle right now is going to be nose to tail between Caden Thur and Gerald Campbell for 3rd place.
Yeah, and Gerald Campbell just waiting to make a pass on Thor, and then behind them you've also got drivers that are battling for back in 15th place, being scattered 3 wide action for a second. As everyone's just staying single filed up front, waiting to make their moves, as it looks like Blaine Atkin, he's going to be getting pressured here from Kyle Johnson.
We've got some great battling going on right now around the area you were just talking about. 6th, 7th, and 8th place. Jake Hounshell, Kyle Johnson, Blaine Atkin. Johnson now making the pass on Atkin to move up to 7th. Then behind them, you've got a good battle going on just inside of the top 10. 16 of Anthony Guarneri, the Steve Park colors on that Pennzoil Chevrolet. Right behind him, Randy Koking. Randy Koking, we've seen him struggling qualifying this year. He's done all right in terms of his race finishes, but right now up inside the top 10, so might have been a team that had Auto Club circled on the calendar as a place where they could really perform.
Yeah, and right now just waiting. I think this is a great move by Koking just to stay in 10th place, watch the action in front of them. As side-by-side action between Guarneri and also Atkin, as Atkin get a little bit out of shape going to the outside, trying to possibly go 3 wide on Johnson, but just not able to.
And I think something you're going to see as well, what you're seeing right there. Blaine Atkin almost pulled up right to the bumper of Kyle Johnson, and I don't really know what the front end of these cars, just how uneven they are, but I think that if you could line up your front bumper with the back bumper of a car ahead of you, we could see some of these drivers try and tandem down these straightaways.
Yeah, you certainly can try to do bump drafting here. If you try to bump draft, though, in the corners, that's when you're going to be finding an issue. So drivers have to be careful, but Ken Thor losing a lot of space. He was right in front of the 25 of Gerald Campbell, losing ground and almost just lost a lot more positions, but luckily fell back, and Kyle Johnson able to help this 57 get going once again.
Yeah, even though Auto Club is really a symmetrical track, turns 1 and 2 very similar in banking and whatnot to 3 and 4, a lot of times we see that 1 and 2 really is the difference making corners as opposed to the final couple of corners, and I think that's where we're going to see a lot of our passes. No caution yet as he was spun down below the white line here on the back straightaway.
From 4th all the way down and just continues to drop back in 27th place, now to 28th. And Kyle Johnson was just trying to get under the 57 and clips him, and it's that bump drafting you were talking about, trying to get themselves lined up, and it spun the 57 around.
Now, it looked like when we focused the camera back on that M&M Chevrolet that he did not hit the inside wall. The infield below the apron there, all paved, which gives drivers a big opportunity to be able to get on the brakes, whoa up the car in time before hitting that safer barrier. So that's the good news. The bad news, though, you hit on it. All that track position lost.
Yeah, and it's just going to be hurting as now the battle for 7th place. Peyton Hill as well as Anthony Graneri side by side here for 7th place as they continue to battle on. As Anthony Graneri has actually dropped out for a second. We'll see if he can find himself back into the server. Or if that's going to be giving Peyton Hill a little bit of a worry, not knowing where the 16 went.
Still waiting for Graneri to reappear, and right now still has not reappeared on our end. As behind them, you got Bo Brady working his way up into the top 10. Last week's winner from Phoenix finally got the monkey off his back and now trying to see if he can go back-to-back in consecutive starts. But he's got a dogfight back here between himself, Randy Koking, 29 of Nick Radar.
AJ goes around to Marzio after being clustered in a huge hornet's nest, goes to the inside wall, same spot we saw Thor.
Coming back up onto the track, no oncoming machines. We remain green for the moment as the 5 gets it refired, but again, another driver having issues on the back straightaway.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the battling that was going on for that 6th, 7th place position, and then you go back to around 11th, and now even for 8th place, we've got a large group that's continuing to grow. That's that hornet's nest.
Did you see the 54 of Tom Bourne get his left sides down the apron? That thing nearly snapped around on him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the risk. That's what we saw Kyle Johnson having issues, and also cars in front of them making some bold moves as Tyler Riggs. He's going to be trying to duck it under and trying to make a pass here on Bo Brady for this 10th place position.
Boy, you see, not a whole lot of room to work with. His car obviously had to hook down the
around.
Radar.
Nick Radar tried to do the bump drafting, and it just completely spins that 26 around.
Boy, I mean, that's the 3rd driver we've seen have an issue with getting bumped from behind and spun around. You have to wonder at some point now with 3 drivers that have spun under the same conditions if these drivers are now going to either be notified or really realize, hey, maybe we can't line up these noses and bumpers without something bad happening.
A driver that has been on the biggest move so far, Bronson Stafford, now up to 8th place. He started back in 27th, and he is hard charging up to the front, running just about 100 slower than our leader.
Bronson Stafford, I believe, was one of the drivers that did not take time, so had to work his way from the back to the front. Now, as you mentioned, in that 8th position, trying to close in on another good battle ahead of him between Peyton Hill and Blaine Atkin.
Yeah, Blaine Atkin, who we thought was going to be a driver battling for the lead, right now struggling for what we're used to seeing him doing. Blaine Atkin has led the most laps all season long, didn't have the best qualifying time for the 0-5, what we've been seeing all season, but still trying to get by Hill as quick as possible.
Dominated back at, I believe it was, where was it?
It was
Nashville, where he ended up losing it on the final lap and then dominated at Richmond, closing out the deal with that victory.
Yeah, both those tracks, short tracks, and that's where we've been seeing the dominance from the 0-5. And then also you go back to Charlotte. That's another place where we saw Blaine Atkin being quick. 3 wide action, back for 10th place. Shane Terrian, Nick Radar, and Kokine 3 wide.
Shane Terrian actually last week was very close to
Nick Radar
going to spin.
And able to save it for that 29 machine somehow, as everyone scatters around him, as it looks like also involved possibly other machines, as they're all trying to get around the 54 as well as the 29.
That was Seth Harlson in the 07, the other driver that was collected up in that one. Some left front damage sustained by him.
Yeah, and also Tom Bourne involved. He was hit in the rear end, so all 3 of those machines, Nick Radar, Harlson, and Bourne, as they try to get back up to speed and moving forward. This has just been a lot of, I feel like, unawareness of how close you are to other vehicles, and also just getting loose in the center of the corner.
Take a look at the back end of that 54. You already documented of Tom Bourne. You can see that that right rear is pushed in. That's also pushed up the rear spoiler. Does that serve as a parachute, or do you think that might actually give the 54 a little bit more downforce going into these corners?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of a parachute on these straightaways. You're kind of wanting your car to be as slipstream as possible coming through the straightaway so you can utilize the draft to its fullest potential. So I think if anything that could be hurting the 54 machine, but he was one of those drivers that was also moving up through the field who didn't qualify. So, you know, still a quick machine. I think a top 15, maybe even a top 5, still in the looming potential, but with this rear end damage, until it gets fixed, I think Tom Bourne might be in a waiting mode, just kind of like where Nick Radar is.
Looking here at the battle that continues to rage for just inside the top 10. Bo Brady trying to hold off Randy Kokine. Right now, that's the best battle up here inside of the top 10. As soon as I say that, though, actually Kyle Johnson has reeled in Jake Hounshell. I'm not sure what happened there, but there was actually about 0.6 of a second separating Campbell back to Hounshell back to Johnson. I don't know if Hounshell messed up a corner or if Johnson's just on a charge.
Yeah, it looks like Hounshell might have made a little bit of a slip up last time through corner 1 and 2, and that's what's given Johnson the potential here and is side by side with that 88 machine, trying to make the pass on Hounshell. Not able to make it just yet. I think Hounshell might be in the better advantage here coming out of the corner with the momentum. But you gotta, I mean, just looking at these drivers, the way that they're running, trying to carry as much speed up front. And I'm very impressed as Johnson gets a little bit out of shape trying to figure out how to enter this corner. Able to swow up enough, but looks like Jake Hounshell just needs to get recouped and get back out there.
One thing that we're going to be keeping an eye on here tonight. Oh, as Hounshell clipped the wall off of 4, nearly loops it around the front straightaway, but these drivers here tonight on this long run are going to have to worry about the Goodyears underneath them, and I think we're starting to see the longer this run goes on, the handling going away on a lot of these machines. So and we saw all that stuff happen earlier on in this run that didn't bring out a yellow flag as Hounshell and Johnson make even more contact. You're kind of getting the feeling that we're going to continue to see a lot more of that the longer we stay under green.
Yeah, Auto Club just as large as Michigan and also Daytona and Talladega, 2 miles. But just like Michigan, this track wears on these tires. At some point, you're going to be seeing the sensation of grip going away, and we were already seeing a little bit during practice of a looseness through the center of the corner. We've seen it already during this race, and I think that's something that's going to build on more and more throughout as this run goes on. But we're also looking to see when the driver's going to go into the pits. Looking around lap 35 might be that marker for some of these drivers if they're going to be coming in for tires.
Good battle going on back here. Tom Bourne. Oh, we got car up in the wall rather. That was Michael Norman in the Valvoline Ford. He was up in the 17th position, now about to drop outside of the top 20, and he was a 4-way battle back here with Tom Bourne, Seth Harlson, and our Bristol winner, Jeff Green.
Yeah, and Jeff Green trying to make a rebound for himself. We're also starting to see a battle for second place as Christopher Morse Jr. He's been losing a lot of tenths on our leader, and as once was about 7 tenths away from him, now all the way back to a 1.5. Gerald Campbell's setting up for possibly a pass here on the 3.
Well, Campbell had already gotten around him for second. Morse made his way back into the runner-up spot, so these two continue to swap that position back and forth. We've been showing you a lot of battles inside and a little bit outside of the top 10. We can't take away from the fact that these first 20 laps have been dominated by John Whitendorf. We haven't shown him out in front just because he's been able to pull away from everybody else. But this 33 still looking for his first win of the season, and obviously as well trying to make a statement down the home stretch of this schedule because he's got to make up over 100 points on 2-time winner Gerald Campbell.
Yeah, we were able to broadcast the G-Force 87 series earlier on in the year, and we got to see a lot of fun racing in those 87 machines where Whitendorf won at a super speedway race, and I think that's why we carried on the momentum of Whitendorf has a chance to get a win here, just because he's got the experience with a looser machine and also at a super speedway. He's got a great shot, and you're seeing it now. I mean, he's starting to pull away more and more as those two of Christopher Morris Jr. and Gerald Campbell continue to battle on.
You know, it's interesting you bring up a win at a super speedway. Another driver that had a win at a super speedway back in that 87 series was Hank Steinmiller. And he's running all the way back here in the 22nd position. Now, looking at our telemetry, he spent a good portion of time on pit road. I didn't see him get involved in the wreck that's brought out our only caution up to this point, but maybe he did. Maybe he got a little bit of damage from it.
I believe he was involved in that incident, and another driver that was involved in an incident and just moved into the top 10, Robert Kenny. That 34 machine, he was involved, had some slight damage, able to get that damage repaired. Now in our top 10, making a great run for himself. Also, an update for Anthony Gurneri. He has officially DNF'd from this race.
Rocky Boy still sits on pit road as well. He's been there for over 13 minutes. Right now, he's slotted in 32nd. He would have to go out and make, I believe, 6 more circuits to take the 31st position away from Anthony Guarneri. A couple of other drivers that were up there towards the front that are now falling back and struggling. How about Tyler Riggs in the 26? Now, we know he had that spin on the front straightaway, but he's been able to catch up to a couple of drivers here that are towards the tail end of the field, but hasn't made a whole lot of forward progress since catching them. And I have to wonder, is that attributed to the wear that was on the tires when he spun out?
Well, he was spun out completely sideways for a while. It took him a while to get back onto the course. He's caught up to the tail end and passed a lot of the drivers that were involved in that first incident that looked like they have engine damage. So he's able to make the pass on those drivers. Now he's trying to run down the back of the field that have just been running slightly off of the pace. And the next car that would be Hank Steinmiller, that really, that 63 machine, he's got some front end damage, trying to continue to move forward as this is the battle back for 22nd position, as it looks like McLaren might have had some issues in the 7 ahead of him.
Of the 3 drivers that have spun out or been spun out here under this green flag run, Tyler Riggs is the highest of them in 23rd. Caden Thur is currently in 26th, and AJ DeMarzo right now in the 28th position. All of them still on the lead lap. We do have a couple of lap down machines as well that are out there on the track. Jason Houndshell, after the extended stay on pit road, getting damaged, repaired to his 00. He's 2 laps down in 36. And Peyton Hamlet actually made an unscheduled pit stop about 15 laps ago and fell 2 laps down to the leaders as well, currently running 29th.
Yeah, and Hamlet had damage on that 10 machine, so had to get the damage repaired, got back out on track. Right now, like you said, 2 laps down, and battling around the drivers that have had issues of Michael Norman and Nick Radar, as both those drivers running around 18th, 19th position with Hamlet behind them back in 29th.
So who's on the move right now? Tom Bourne, lap by lap, has been moving up a position or 2. Got around Harleston, Randy Koking, and now he's gotten around Mike Tellier, who's making his G-Force debut here tonight, at number 97. Tom Bourne, a couple of positions away from cracking back up inside the top 10.
Now, also, you got to give credit to Kyle Johnson. I mean, yes, he's fallen back a couple of positions, but a great recovery from his part after that early spin on lap 1. Did drop all the way back to around 10th place, was able to make a charge forward up to about fourth place. Now he's slowly dropping back. I think he might have used up too much of his tires.
Other driver having a great run here today. I think he's been up inside of the top 6 the entirety of this race. How about that Noss Chevrolet of Peyton Hill? He, I think, made his debut back at Charlotte and has made every race since then, and I think this is the best performance we've seen out of him to date.
Yeah, Peyton Hill qualified 10th and now running in 8th place. This 84 machine, like you said, a great qualifying and a pretty good run for himself, watching other drivers having their issues and really just running consistent. I think a top 10 finish would be fabulous for this 84 machine, as he just got passed by Shane Tarian and Kyle Johnson there. And Tarian, another one of those drivers, and Tarian is in an interesting position in that 38 machine. In that first caution, he came in the pits just to pack it full of fuel to go a little bit further than some of the drivers that stayed out and did not come in for fuel or tires on that first caution.
As mentioned last week, Shane Tarian on fresh tires kind of rolled the dice on strategy at Phoenix. It almost got him the victory, but a couple of late race cautions could not get him up into the vicinity of Bo Brady, who eventually went on to take the victories. So Shane Tyrion again going a little bit outside the box in terms of strategy, but up at the front still the gap continues to grow. It's now 2.7 seconds from Whitendorf back to Gerald Campbell, and a big reason for that is it's been a lot of back and forth between Campbell in the 25, Christopher Morse Jr. in the 3 for second place, and that's actually brought the 0-2 of Jake Hounshell now into the picture as well, so a three-way battle for the runner-up spot.
Yeah, looking at the times the drivers have been putting down, fastest car on track actually is going to be Bronson Stafford in 5th place. Then you've got Shane Terrian and then Whitendorf, who's our leader at the moment. Good thing for Whitendorf, he's got 4.6 seconds over Bronson Stafford, who runs in 5th place. But that battle for 2nd place is about to get a lot more heavier because really Christopher Morse Jr. has not lost Gerald Campbell, but Jake Hounshell is gaining as well as Bronson Stafford.
Now, we've seen a lot of drivers slipping and sliding around here, a lot of grip lacking for these drivers, especially on the entry to the corner. Not really sure what the fuel window is for these drivers, but I mean, even if they were able to make it the rest of the way, do you think that the tire wear would draw them to pit road before the conclusion of this race?
Kyle Johnson just pulled it into the pits for the 88 machine, and I think he might have misjudged where his pit stall was and actually almost missed his pit box, able to come back, and now he's going to be in service. I believe these drivers can go about 40 to maybe 50 laps. So this is around the window the 88 machine possibly can make it to the end.
So could be thinking green flag to the end here. Could Kyle Johnson, and not unusual to see that 88 machine going outside the box in terms of strategy as well. He did that back at Las Vegas. I think he also did it the following week at Phoenix. So seen him do it here again tonight at Auto Club as Whitendorf continues to show the way. And now the question is, did the 88 of Kyle Johnson just force the hand of some of these other drivers that might have possibly thought about stretching a little bit further?
I don't think it's really put anyone in a must pit now scenario. I think Kyle Johnson might have bit himself in the butt for this type of a move. This move might have been too soon, especially once we see a lot more drivers coming into the pits. We've seen the loose sensation in the first couple of laps, drivers getting spun around or just spinning themselves. That could be bringing out a caution if we go green. And with more drivers coming to the pits, the possibility of drivers that are one lap down could be left one lap down.
We're about to see the difference between fresh tires and old tires. That's Kyle Johnson, who just came off pit road, reeling in this battle for 6th between Shane Tyrion and Peyton Hill. Right now, kind of maintaining a gap down the back straightaway. I think we're definitely going to see it here in the corners, the grip that he has as opposed to these other machines. And just look right there. I mean, there's probably about, 4, 5, 6 miles per hour difference going into the corner for the 88.
Yeah, and right now Kyle Johnson's going to be running about a second to almost 2 seconds faster than what the rest of the field's going to be running. So this 88 machine going to be cruising and trying to, if anything, unlap himself the hard way. The issue is the leader about 6.5 seconds ahead of where the 88 car, so it's going to be a lot of work. Might be able to make the pass here in the next about 3 to 4 laps.
Yeah, you would think that at a track like Auto Club, 2 miles in length, that he more than likely, as Jeff Green, the 2 is actually on pit road, that he more than likely would be able to come down, make his pit stop, and come out still on the lead lap, because usually at Daytona and Talladega, that's usually the case. Thing is, the field is awfully spread out right now, so if you're back, I would say anywhere from 8th on back, you're more than likely going to lose a lap to the race leader, John Whitendorf.
Yeah, another couple of drivers that have come into the pits. We've also got Randy Koking, Ernest King, and Nick Radar. Those drivers have pitted along with Kyle Johnson and Jeff Green. So we continue to watch and see who's going to be sprinkling their way into pit stops. But right now, I mean, we're starting to see still our top 23, have not pitted yet.
You got the drivers right now that are pitting.
Jeff Green's spinning it around, coming back onto the track and able to save it for that 2 machine, but that was around a lot of drivers that were still on course.
Takes out the commitment cone after coming off the pit lane and back onto the back straightaway, and that's going to hurt for Jeff Green because even after the pit stop cycle around, if they do completely, Jeff Green's going to lose a lot of track position and a lot of running order positions as well because of that spin.
Yeah, and it's also going to be heating up the tires a lot sooner and could be wearing them quicker than some of the other drivers out here. As with Kyle Johnson cutting his way through our lead groups, he just passed 3rd place of Jake Hounshell, got about to pass the 25 machine Gerald Campbell. Then he's find himself with another 3 seconds before he gets to the leader. Kyle Johnson is coming with a head of steam, as other drivers are still waiting to see when they're going to be coming into the pits. But lap traffic also kind of being an issue for some of these drivers, as AJ DiMarzio going to be in the mix of our drivers that are hunting for second place.
We're focused on the two of Jeff Green again because he had some kind of a problem come off of turn 4. I don't know if you can find out what that was, Sam, but all of a sudden he got down to about 30 miles per hour and was crawling down the front straightaway. I was wondering if maybe he was either blowing up or maybe running out of fuel, but he has refired the car back up to speed and continued on. But a little bit of a puzzlement of what happened to him there off the final corner.
Yeah, it's the same thing that I was talking about with these new tires. When they come on, they're trying to get that heat builded up, and a little bit loose sensation came into the 2 machine, spun it out of 4, and that's why it came to a complete stop and did not bring out a caution, but still hurting him even more than his little slip up that he had coming back onto the track after pitting.
Last week's winner, Bo Brady, into the attention of his crew. And yeah, it's been a tough couple of weeks here for Jeff Green after the elation of winning at Bristol. Last week, he ran out of fuel under pacing at Phoenix, lost a number of laps because of that, and now having issues here at the halfway point of the Auto Club races. Whitendorf continues to show the way. The best battle right now that's going on is actually going on outside of the top 10. That's where you find Tyler Riggs, Michael Norman, and Caden Thor starting to enter into this as well. So some of those drivers that spun out, like the 26 and the 57, with staying out there, picking up some spots here.
Yeah, and it's really helping them with the fact that we haven't been seeing a lot of yellow flags coming out, and we've been seeing that the cautions have been kind of eased on some of these drivers, even though we've been seeing a lot of single spins. If it's not a multiple car, it doesn't seem like a caution is going to be coming out for most of these drivers. I also want to give an update for drivers that have DNF'd. Ernest King has parked it for the day, as we're starting to see Thor. He's caught up to Riggs, as well as Norman, as they've been battling back and forth here for about a lap or two.
We've got a battle for second side by side. Gerald Campbell has been reeled in by Jake Houndshell, and Houndshell's actually going to go up to the second groove to try and make the pass on Campbell. Nothing doing there through 3 and 4. He'll tuck back in line. That's Bronson Stafford. Talked about the lap times he was laying down. He's now reeling in these two. We're about to have a 3-way battle for the second position here, as we now officially are past the halfway point.
Yeah, and Bronson Stafford, for the past about, I would say, 10 laps or so, been running about a tenth faster than our leader and has been slowly cutting into the lead every single lap. And if we stay green until pit stops come around, I feel like the 61, a car to watch out for. And then also you got to think of the 38. That's about 2.5 seconds back from Bronson Stafford. He's been running pretty similar lap times, as we're still side by side for second place. And Jake Houndshell able to make the pass on Gerald Campbell.
All right, so I'm going to throw out a question to you about drivers like Bronson Stafford, Shane Tyrion. They've got this kind of pace on the long run. So if the leader comes down pit road, do you stay out a couple extra laps to try and see if you can gain some track position there, maybe catch a caution? Or do you come to pit road the same lap as the 33?
I think you push it as far as you can go. Make sure you've got the freshest tires and you know you can run them down. At the moment, we're seeing basically about a second and about 8/10 is about the difference between these drivers from their best times they're running to now. And that's even working with the draft and all by yourself, as his battle for second place is now a 3-car battle, still side by side between Houndshell and Campbell. But Bronson Stafford there going to be putting his nose under Jake Houndshell.
Right now, with Stafford making the pass, 3 of your top 4 on the running order are drivers that are inside of the top 5 in the points. Campbell, the points leader, Whitendorf second, and Jake Houndshell in 5th. Couple of other drivers inside of the top 10 not having quite as good of runs. You got Hank Steinmiller right now in 13th, but that will probably change after the pit stop cycle completes. And Dallas Myhand, who got involved in that early caution, the only caution we've had up to this point right now, he is running back in the 22nd position. He was on pit road a lap ago, and he came into this race 4th in points.
Multiple machines coming into the pits now. You've got yourself Peyton Hill, Thor, as well as Michael Norman all pulling in this time by.
And this is with coming to 35 laps to go for these drivers. I think you said, what, about 40 laps?
Our leader came in.
Go?
Yeah, about 40 to 50 laps is around where these drivers were aiming at, as John Whitendorf, our leader, has pulled it in, now gifting the lead to Bronson Stafford.
So now the question is, for a lot of these drivers, would a caution come out, and when would it happen? We've seen before how a caution in the middle of green flag pit stops really shakes things up. as Bronson Stafford, first time that he will lead here tonight. Jake Cownshell in second, Campbell now in third, Shane Thierry in fourth, and Robert Kenny there in fifth. Right now, Luminary has got 3 of their drivers up inside of the top 5.
Tom Bourne going to be coming into the pits. Seth Harrelson as well joining in with John Whitendorf. So we're starting to see a lot more of these front runners. Now Bronson Stafford, Jake Hounshell, they'll come in. Gerald Campbell now gifted the lead.
Can you believe it that it's lap 42, and we're just now saying Gerald Campbell has led his first lap of the night just after the dominating season that he's had?
Yeah, and we're past the halfway marker. So these drivers that are coming into the pits, they know that they're good to make it to the end. Shane Terrian, though, of the drivers that are up front, he came in during that first caution that we had, packed that car full of fuel, and is going to be able to go a little bit further than everyone else that's running right now.
Right now, you've got Campbell, Tyrion, and Kenny. That's your top 3. Blaine Atkin has now jumped up into 4th. Mike Tellier in 5th. James Roth. I don't know how up to speed that car is, because I know he definitely was one of the drivers involved in that wreck back on lap 1, but he's now up in the 6th position.
Yeah, a great comeback for Roth. And now we're going to be seeing Gerald Campbell into the pits as Shane Terrian going to be pulling away.
Terrian now out in front, and we're actually just getting word that apparently the 61 who was coming down pit road as the leader, Bronson Stafford, pit road issue. He did indeed miss his pit box. Those are the kind of mistakes, especially when the race looks like it's going to settle into a long run, maybe even to the end. You can't afford mistakes like that.
No, you absolutely cannot, as well as we're going to be seeing other drivers going to the pits. Hank Steinmiller and Blaine Atkin, as well as Gerald Campbell about to get it going, and more issues for some of these drivers that come into the pits. Peyton Hill, that is going to be Peyton Hamlet of the 10 machine. More issues for him as he missed his box. As now coming to the pits, it's going to be Shane Terrian.
It's really interesting because we really haven't seen that happen a lot this season with drivers missing their pit stalls. What do you think it is about this track and this pit road in particular?
Oh no, Robert Kenny! Rocky Boyd got on the back bumper of our leader at the time, and able to save it was Robert Kenny, but almost a complete carnage for our leader at the moment.
Heart-stopping moment there for the 34 of Kenny, who is the race leader currently. Probably will be coming down pit road this time, but just going back quickly to the question I was going to ask you, I mean, what do you think it is about this particular pit road at Auto Club where drivers are actually having that miscommunication of seeing where their pit sign is?
I mean, it's the fact that this pit road is so much longer than some of the other pit boxes that you usually see at speedways, and also I think it's just maybe missing what your pit box was initially. Some of these drivers might have forgotten where they qualified, and so not recognizing where their box is. I'm staying on board with Robert Kenny, who does find his box, gets in cleanly, but that incident with Rocky Boyd is going to be hurting him a lot, as well as Roth now pulling himself into the pits. Now our leader is going to be, Kyle Johnson, and he's going to be having to hold off a lot of hungry drivers that have much fresher tires, as right now has over a 3.5 second lead over John Whitendorf. That is running about almost a full second faster than the 88.
Yeah, there's 12 laps difference between the tires on the 88 and the tires on the 33. Kyle Johnson was one of those that I think was that Shane Lake there that looks like a wounded race car on the apron, the back straightaway. But Kyle Johnson rolled the dice as far as short pitting as soon as the fuel window opened. But we're definitely seeing that as far as the long run pace.
Yellow flag is out. Yellow flag comes out for the drivers. I'm trying to figure out where that was. And possibly that was for Lake. But I believe it might have, as the drivers are still racing now to come across the line.
Oh, yeah, the 81 must have hit the outside wall. The right front tire is sticking outwards right now on his machine. I think the caution was thrown to make sure he'd be able to get back to pit road.
Also, might have been multiple cars involved in this thing as we take another look at this as they've crossed the line. It's going to be Kyle Johnson, our leader, and now the possibility of Johnson coming in and getting fresher tires there now as he was kind of in a sitting duck position.
Let's see what happened to Shane Lake. This was over in the vicinity of turns 1 and 2.
Oh,
did he get hit by somebody?
Yeah, Peyton Hamlet was just sitting on the exit of pit road, it looked like, for the 10, merging from the apron back onto the track, and contact was made between those drivers. Also, another driver got into the 10, I believe. And that was almost Shane Terrian, who just barely got around the Technic machine, excuse me, there.
Let's go back and see if we can find out what happened to Hamlet coming off of pit lane. I don't know if maybe he had the same issue Jeff Green had earlier, just looping it around, coming off of pit road exit. Oh, wow. Yeah, I think, was he trying to warm up his tires? I don't know. I mean, that thing just started snapping around on him.
I think he got on the throttle a little bit too soon, and it just launched him up in the track, almost got into Dallas Myhan, then tried to save it, and it just continued to get worse the more that he was trying to save the car, and almost took out way more cars that were running the racing line. And then when he came back onto the apron, right there was Shane Lake with nowhere else to go.
Incredible that shot from Shane Lake into Peyton Hamlet didn't send the 10 car further up the racing surface, because there were a lot of oncoming traffic right there, including Jake Hounshell and Gerald Campbell.
And with this caution, it now allows some of the drivers that have been involved in incidences on this long green flag run that we had, get those damage repairs and get back out there on the track. Looks like Kyle Johnson did come into the pits possibly here, as I'm looking to see where the 88 car is. But he's going to be back in 18th place, the first of the drivers that came into the pits. And we now have our top 16 of drivers that kind of surprised to see some of these drivers that decided to stay out. I mean, we got Dallas Myhan and Christopher Morris Jr. They're on 10-lap old tires, as well as Randy Koken, who's on much older tires, and they're deciding to stay out and not get fresher tires. Probably their idea is that we're going to be seeing another yellow flag here soon.
Yeah, I believe they have, 2 sets of tires to work with here tonight. So, yeah, you want to have that extra set saved just in case an extra yellow comes out. I mean, this is going to be the closest that these drivers have raced to each other since all the way back on lap 6 when we went back green after what at the point was our only caution of the day. So we get in the second half of these races, Sam, we know with the late race restarts, especially at a track that can hold them 5 wide like Auto Club, we're going to see drivers make some pretty gutsy moves.
Yeah, and drivers we saw being spun around. Tyler Riggs, also Caden Thor. Both those drivers able to now make some rebounds with everyone being reset and where they are now. Also, drivers that were involved in that first accident, seeing some of the way that they've been able to march through with James Roth, as well as seeing Robert Kenny up here in the top 10, even with getting that damage in our first caution.
Let's talk about tires in translation to speed. You mentioned about Kyle Johnson coming to pit road. So too did Tom Bourne, Jeff Green, Nick Radar, Michael Norman, Seth Harrelson. Those were the drivers that pitted under this caution. If we're using the lead car of those that pitted, Kyle Johnson, as a little bit of a template here, he has 6 lap fresher tires than the race leader, John Whitendorf. Is 6 laps enough tire wear on those Goodyears of the 33 that the 88's going to be able to get himself back up there, at least into the top 5?
I think so. I think it's going to be plenty of time, especially with how much time is still left in this race. I think the 88 of Kyle Johnson set up in a very prime situation, as well as Tom Bourne. Both those drivers have been very quick and honestly have been showing speed to be top 5 machines. So excited to see how they're going to be cutting their way through the field, but it is going to be very difficult as the pace car is off and green flag back in the air as John Whitendorf gets a fabulous start for himself and now waits to see if maybe the draft will pull the rest of the field back up to him.
And as you saw, single file restart back on the first restart of the day, double file restart for the second restart of the evening. Whitendorf ahead, Peyton Hill now trying to hold off Hounshell in the 0-2. Campbell trying to figure out where he can go to make it a 3-man fight.
Tyler Riggs found some speed, as well as Bronson Stafford back in round 14th place. They've been trying to make a charge, but in front of them, it's going to be 3 wide action as it's a hornet's nest from 10th on back.
Shane Terrian with the cross from the top to the bottom. He'll put Campbell 3 wide. Hounshell up on the top side. Middle line prevails for the moment for Campbell, but now it's going to be himself and Terrian for 3rd place off of 4. Campbell into the wall.
Campbell right into the wall, just drifted a little bit too high, and now that's going to be hurting him, and here comes now other drivers of Kenny as well as Atkin involved.
There's no doubt that the tire that gets the most abuse at Auto Club is that right front. And yeah, if you run too high off of turn 4, the tight sensation you're going to get with that heated up right front, it's going to be like that car doesn't want to turn at all. Kenny with a slide maneuver there gets around Campbell. Now it's Blaine Atkin to drivers left on the 25.
And Atkin going to be trying to put himself there, but Campbell has a little bit more space. He's going to be ducking low, trying to get under the 34 machine, and will do so as Atkin very nicely backs off for a second, almost taking out both those drivers. And we're starting to see this battle here for 5th place. It's still looming strong. But the battle for 1st place, it's Peyton Hill in the 84 machine, a 10th away from our leader.
How about Peyton Hill? We asked the question, is there a possibility that we could end up having another first-time winner this season? Well, take a look at your top 3. All those drivers still looking for their first trip to victory lane here in the Grand National Series. The battle continues to be the best one back here for the 5th position. Campbell and Robert Kenny duking it out. Blaine Atkin looking to see what happens here.
We talked about the fresher tires. How quick could they be cutting through the field? Well, right now, Kyle Johnson's going to be back in 15th place, and then Tom Bourne is actually the first of the drivers with fresher tires. He's up to 11th.
And now trying to put the pressure on Hank Steinmiller, Bronson Stafford, and others. There you saw Johnson back there utilizing the apron, I guess you could call it, shorter way around the racetrack here on the front stretch, but then of course you have to make sure you merge safely back up into turn 1. We did have a car just down there on the apron. I think that might have possibly been is that the 7 of Jackson McLaren that was actually coming back out onto the racetrack? Somebody was just coming off of pit road.
I believe that's going to be James Goshen that just got back out on there. We got 3 machines that just came into the pits, unscheduled stops. Goshen, McLaren, and then also for Seth Harrelson, as it looks like they might have had heavy damage, deciding to come into the pits.
Now, just an update here as well. Something I noticed when we went back green, last week's winner, Bo Brady, had that win at Phoenix and had great performances the 2 weeks prior at Las Vegas and Bristol. He's actually trapped a lap down, so must have had an issue there during the green flag pit stops, lost a lap, and was not the recipient of the free pass under this caution. So right now, last week's winner, 22nd, first car, 1 lap down.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It seems like if you get a win, you start to have bad luck the next week after that, and it looks like that pattern continues on with Bo Brady. Like you said, 1 lap down. Also, Jake Hounshell, he's going to be dropping and trying to make a pass here on Peyton Hill. Hill is the one that is actually dropping back. He went from 2nd, now back to 4th place. Shane Tarian now going to be trying to make a charge here on Whitendorf, as he had to work his way up through the whole entire field for this 38 machine and was about 3 seconds off our leader before those lead lap green flag pit stops happened. So I'm excited to see what this 38 machine has for the 33.
Right now, he's got about 3 lap fresher tires than John Whitendorf does, and I don't think Whitendorf wants to hear you say that if you win a race, then your luck's going to turn for the worst based off of the Bo Brady problems here tonight, because he has dominated here this evening. He led the first half of this race up until that caution coming out. He gave up the lead there to come down pit road, and now out in front yet again, trying to see if he can complete what's been a dominating performance here tonight to take the victory. The other important thing as well, most of that first half of the race when he was leading, the guy who he was trying to close the points gap up between himself and points leader, Gerald Campbell, was running in 2nd. Now Campbell finds himself back in a bit of a hornet's nest. He was back in 5th. He picked up one of those spots here getting around Peyton Hill, but the more cars that pass Gerald Campbell, the more points that John Whitendorf is going to gain staying out in front.
Yeah, Whitendorf is looking for Campbell to have an off day, maybe even finish outside of the top 10 if possible. Speaking about the top 10, Kyle Johnson, leader of the cars with the freshest tires, right now in 10th place. And Tom Bourne being stuck on the outside, not able to make any moves, kind of being almost forced up into the wall. And some great recoveries for Caden Thor, who is now up to 9th place.
So Kyle Johnson up in the top 10, but he hasn't exactly, like a lightning strike, gotten himself up there into the top 10. He's had to do it slowly and methodically. If we go green to the end here, does Kyle Johnson with the fresher tires have enough Goodyear underneath him to get up there? Woo!
Got a little bit of a bump there for Bronson Stafford, but a great save by the 05 of Blaine Atkin.
But going back to the whole Kyle Johnson situation, does he have fresh enough tires as opposed to the other drivers ahead of him to get up there and be in the vicinity of the top 2 or 3 in the closing stages to take advantage and close out this with a victory?
I don't think so. I think that he needs another caution and hope that no one else takes tires in front of him to get a little bit of a reset, because right now Kyle Johnson 3.5 seconds away from our leaders, and with the hard battling that he's doing right now to try to get by Bronson Stafford and Blaine Atkin, what a move!
Man.
But it doesn't look, it might stick. Oh, he's drifting back, but Kyle Johnson, what a brave move to try to cut the 6-1 in the 05 there, almost taking everyone out that was involved in that incident. Whew, that's a scary moment.
and he had them all wadded up behind him as well. So if he had gotten turned around, we probably would have had upwards of 7, 8 cars collected up in this one. A little contact with the front nose of Blaine Atkin, a little contact with the driver's side door of Bronson Stafford, and now Blaine hit the wall hard.
And he's able to save it. Almost came right down in front of the whole entire field, able to keep that car up high, and he's just going to drop back. This 05 machine is not the day that he has been wanting, as those tires have just dropped off from what he had before.
And that thing was fishtailing off of turn 4. I'm shocked it didn't shoot back down the racetrack. Great job being the wheelman that he is to gather that thing back up. But that's going to obviously, as we know, translate to him more than likely losing spots the longer this run goes on, because that is just going to wear and tear on those rear tires.
As we were watching the battling back there for 10th place, the battle for the lead is on. Shane Terrian to the inside of John Whitendorf.
First time today under green flag conditions that John Whitendorf is going to get a challenge for the top positions. Shane Terrian came up bridesmaid last week at Phoenix. He wants to be the bride here tonight at Auto Club, and he has taken the lead here over the 33.
And just like that, continuing forward, Shane Terrian, who qualified all the way back in 21st position, didn't put a qualifying lap down, went with the strategy of see what happens during this race, slowly make your charge throughout the field, and it's finally worked out for this 38 machine, who finds himself up in the lead, now trying to pull away from the 33 machine of John Whitendorf. And then you drop back for the battling that's for 5th place. Robert Kenny and Peyton Hill, they are still side by side. They've been side by side for about 3 laps now.
Got some good battling actually going on, a little bit of mano-a-mano battles all the way through the top 10. Terrian and Whitendorf for the lead, Campbell and Houndshell nose to tail for 3rd, Kenny and Hill battling for the 5th position. Then behind them, you've got a wad of about 3 machines with Stafford, Kyle Johnson, and Hank Steinmiller. So you got some pretty good little battles going on here all the way through the top 10.
Yeah, and they're going to be continuing to battle like this, as they're just not giving it an inch for anyone that they're around. As Campbell trying to make this pass for 3rd place, as these two have been battling side by side since we were green and going into green flag pit stops. They just continue this on, and just looking at the battling back for 6th place, Peyton Hill has now dropped back to Bronson Stafford, Kyle Johnson, and also Hank Steinmiller, as these drivers are going to be figuring out how to split their way past this 84 machine. And it just looks like Peyton Hill has a good short run machine, just not good enough as the longer this run has gone on.
How about Hank Steinmiller there in that 63 machine? We saw him, after getting a little bit of damage from the earlier incident, running most of this first half of the race outside of the top 20. He's now up there in 9th. He was, I believe, one of 2 drivers inside the top 5 in points that looked like he was going to have a bad points day, but great comeback for him. Right behind him, the 26 of Tyler Riggs, right now holding down that 10th position after he had his spin on the front stretch. So we've got a couple of comeback stories here as we're closing in on 10 laps to go.
10 laps to go. Shane Terrian in that 38 machine leading the way and continues to pull away from John Whitendorf, as we've also see our leaders lapping down the 77 of Rocky Boyd, who at the moment is 27 laps down, was involved in that first incident of the day, was airborne in our first caution, and just trying to log as many laps as possible, seeing if anyone else would be wrecked out of this race. But this is surprising to see, as we're still side by side for 3rd place and about to be now a 3-car battle for that 3rd position.
We saw the Luminary Racing machine of Shane Terrian take the race lead, but I would hazard a guess that Robert Kenny might be the fastest car on track, because he no sooner broke away in that battle between himself and Peyton Hill for what was then 5th place, and he got up here and caught the 25 of Gerald Campbell and the 02 of Jake Houndshell.
Yeah, the issue right now, it looks like it is extremely difficult to make any type of passes, and for Robert Kenny, he was there with Shane Terrian in that first green flag run that we had, with the fact that he was saving his tires and had one of the fastest cars and machines out there all track. And for most of basically through lap 20 to about lap 40, one of the faster machines out there. And now making a charge, making the pass for 4th place, about to make the pass for 3rd place, but might be too far back to try to run down his teammate. And also here comes Bronson Stafford and Kyle Johnson. And Johnson, like we stated, has the freshest tires out there.
We're watching from 3rd place back to 8th right now, and we're going to stay on this battle because this is where the big group of cars are that are battling inside of the top 10, and they're racing hard. If there's any possibility that we would end up having a late race yellow, it could take place in this area of the field. But Going up there to the front, Shane Tyrion, a half a second over John Whitendorf. And the problem right now, I think, for the 33 car is mention the fact he dominated the first half of this race. Yeah, he maybe had to deal with a little bit of traffic there after the green flag cycle was done, but it's the first time tonight that he really has had to deal with what his car handles like in dirty air. So I almost wonder if he's had to kind of adapt to that for the first time this evening.
And also, we're seeing about half the drivers that are in our top 10 were drivers that never even put a qualifying lap down. So kind of hiding their speed and went with a different strategy than what Whitendorf was doing. I think Whitendorf had the strategy to possibly win this race if it stayed green all the way through. But with the late cautions that we've been seeing, it's really put a different challenge as Gerald Campbell gets spun around.
And that is going to really hurt the 25 car in terms of the point standings, unless he could get a caution to save him. He was down close to that inside saber barrier. I don't know if he hit it or not.
I don't think he hit it at all. Also, a new DNF, Blaine Atkin, has officially parked it for the day for that 0-5, who had all the issues of getting up into the wall, but battling once again back there for 5th place. Kyle Johnson, 3-wide action for a second there between himself, Houndshell, and Steinmiller.
You know, this is a 2-mile super speedway. I wouldn't normally think this is a way to make a pass, but maybe bumping someone on the straightaway is how you're going to be able to move them out of the way to be able to pick up a spot. Don't know. Maybe they'll keep that in their memory bank for later on here as we are at 10 laps to go. Kyle Johnson, top side of Houndshell, trying to get himself into the top 5. Those fresher tires have been able to pick him up. I think it's been 10 spots since we went back green, and he nearly had contact between himself and Houndshell. Here comes Steinmiller.
Yeah, Steinmiller decided to just completely send it full throttle up into the wall almost, able to save it and continuing forward. But right now, I mean, that battle that was going on for the lead, it's closing. As Whitendorf might have been playing a possum there and saving his tires for a second, he's starting to run down the 38. But now the question of, was the 38 saving at all?
And now the thing that John Whitendorf, if he does have a little bit of tire conserved there to be able to utilize against Shane Tyrion, the last thing you want is to see a caution flag come out, because it's going to take him a few laps to set up this 38 car to be able to make a pass.
Yeah, and honestly, if a caution comes out, you might be seeing some of these drivers come into the pits, try to get fresher tires possibly, because the drivers that decided to pit on that last caution, like Kyle Johnson, Tom Bourne, and others, they now are left with the tires that they have on at the moment, and they don't have an extra set to work with, while most of the rest of the field still have a set.
Gerald Campbell fell all the way back to 18th place out of 20 drivers on the lead lap after that spin. He's obviously a driver that is hoping, lobbying for a caution to come out here in the closing stages. As right now, with John Whitendorf having been out in front, and I believe he's also led the most laps here tonight, he could gain anywhere upwards of 20 to maybe 23 points on Gerald Campbell. And when you consider the fact it was a 104-point deficit coming into this race, that's a huge chunk that he's been able to close up.
It's absolutely massive and great to see for really closing up this points battle that's going on. Gerald Campbell, not a fan of seeing the way that this race has gone down for himself, was hoping for a better run. Speaking of a good run for some drivers, Mike Tellier, one of the drivers that having his debut race here today in that 97 machine, is going to be back in 9th place battling with Peyton Hill. A great run for this newcomer.
Might actually clear him down the back straightaway, and indeed he will. So yeah, Mike Tellier, who we've seen over in the Clutch Drop Series, over here making his debut in the G-Force Racing Series, and en route, first start, possible first career top 10. James Roth, good comeback run there for the 4 machine as well. I think out of everybody that was involved in that lap 1 wreck, the one guy that I easily probably would have written off as not having a shot of even getting back up here into the vicinity of maybe even the top 15 was that 4 of James Roth. I mean, he went nose first up into the outside wall, but credit him and credit his crew for getting that thing put back together, and he's got a shot of finishing that wounded car inside of the top 10.
Yeah, and also you got Tom Bourne and Caden Thor. Both of them have been involved in some type of an incident. They're right outside the bubble of a top 10 finish for themselves, and I think that would be elation for them just to be able to get to a top 10 with how the race has gone on and on, it feels like, for those drivers.
You see the battle scars on the 2 of Jeff Green. Right now, he's still on the lead lap in the 14th position. Remember, he ended up having that caution come out after pit road issues, spinning off of pit lane and losing a lot of track position, so a nice comeback run for him. Christopher Morris Jr., we saw him up towards the front in the early stages of this race. He's now back in 15th place, and Sam, 5 laps to go, 4.5 here on the back straightaway. The gap's now opened up to about 0.4 of a second between Tyrion and Weitendorf. Right now, it's looking like a mano-a-mano, but that white number 34 just entering into the background of the screen.
Yeah, it's kind of been an accordion effect for our top two. It just seems like Weitendorf one lap has gained about 0.2, and the next lap he'll lose 0.2. But like you said, Robert Kenny is coming in that 34 machine. He's been running about 1/10 faster than what our leaders have been doing, so it's been helping him every single lap. But if he only is gaining 1/10 every lap, he's going to run out of time. He needs another extra about 2 laps if he continues at the momentum he's going at.
At last time by, amongst the top 3, Kenny was the fastest with a 6.76, Tyrion with a 6.99, Weitendorf with a 7.31. The fastest car, actually, in the entire top 5 was Bronson Stafford with a 43.609. The problem is, he's 1.7 seconds behind the race leader.
Yeah, we'll see here in the next couple, and really this lap when they come across, how much has Bronson gained or lost. Robert Kenny really didn't gain much that last lap. And it looks like right now, Shane Terrian, he might have been saving his tires, recognizing, hey, other drivers are catching up. I got to get going, because he's pulled that lead almost back to a half a second again.
Right now, the battle may be for second in the closing stages of this race. Kenny with another 43.6 to Weitendorf's mid 43.7. And Shane Terrian right there down the back straightaway, you can visibly see about 5.5, now 6 car lengths going into turn 3. Shane Terrian trying to throw it into another gear as he's trying to pick up his first win of the season. He'll see 2 laps to go this time by off turn 4.
Yeah, and Weitendorf, he's got to be thinking, how more, or what else do I have to throw at this 38 machine? Because it felt like this win was in his hands until the late caution came out. Then John Weitendorf kind of felt like he needed to figure out how to recoup, didn't know what type of speed he really had with the rest of the field, and recognized, hey, there's a lot of other fast cars that just had to work their way through traffic, and that caution helped them out so much.
Well, last week, Shane Terrian made his first start of the season, finished second place. Here tonight, he's making his second start of the season, and he's 6 corners away from capturing his first win of the season. He'll see the white flag this next time by. Right now, if you're looking for a closing stages battle, look no further than 5th position. That's where you've got Kyle Johnson, Hank Steinmiller, Jake Houndshell mixing it up.
And coming across the line, Shane Terrian going to be leading the way for our Dirty Podcast, Dirty Racing Podcast, White Flag. If you want to listen to a great podcast, it's going to be starting in 2021. More information at Dirty Podcast Racing on their Twitter.
Today, Sam, I got a question for you. How many wins this season does the Dodge manufacturer have in the series?
I believe absolutely none.
You are correct. They're en route to their first win of the season, courtesy of Shane Terrian, as he'll traverse into turn 3, looks to hit his marks, runs about the groove and a half, maybe second groove there through the corner, and turns for home off turn 4.
And Shane Terrian in this 38 machine might have gotten second last week, ran out of time. This time around, gets the win here at Auto Club.
Well, last week, it was the cautions that hurt Shane Terrian. This week, it may have been the caution flag that helped the driver of the 38 machine, as in only his second start, Shane Terrian is going to bring it home with the victory. And how about a team performance there by Luminary? Terrian with the win, Kenny in 3rd, and Bronson Stafford in 4th. 3 of the top 5 positions for those machines.
Yeah, and really it was going to be Robert Kenny, fastest car on that last lap, tried to make a push. Also, I mean, you got to give credit to Weitendorf, who tried his best to try to run down that 38 machine, but it just wasn't enough. And maybe if there were a couple more laps, would have been seen Bronson Stafford and also Robert Kenny making a late charge there.
A little premature burnout there for Shane Terrian, going around off the nose of his teammate. A little contact there as well for the 97 of Mike Tellier. But, going back to the Weitendorf situation, yes, obviously he wanted to win here tonight. He wanted the bonus points that come with going to victory lane. But a second place performance to the hardships of Gerald Campbell in the closing stages. Campbell was only able to pick up 1 spot after his spin and finish in 17th place. So while the 33 will not be able to go to victory lane, he can hold his head high heading into next week's race at Texas, knowing, hey, I cut down the points lead between myself and Campbell by about 20%.
Yeah, it was a great cut to be seen. The issue is, like you said, we're going to Texas next week, and Texas, it's a mile and a half. And who's won all the mile and a half so far this season? It's been Gerald Campbell. A rebound possibly looming for that for that machine, but Shane Terrian in the 38 car able to get it done, and what a great day for himself. Like I said, qualified in 21st position, had to slowly make his way forward, had to survive that first lap caution, and then found himself up here with a late caution, setting himself up to try to pass that 33 machine.
Man, you're just full of bad news for John Whitendorf. I don't know. Anyway, let's take a look at the finishing results for this one. We gave you pretty much down through the top four. Steinmiller fifth, Kyle Johnson. The fresh tires, just not enough time for him to take advantage of them. He did work his way from 15th up to 6th in those closing stages. Houndshell will finish in 7th. Tyler Riggs in 8th. Still, despite the fact that he wasn't up there inside the top 5 in the closing stages, a great run overall tonight for Peyton Hill. Kept himself in the top 10 all night long. And Mike Tellier, what a debut run for him, completing the top 10. Behind them, 11th place, Caden Thor, James Roth in 12th, Tom Bourne 13th, Jeff Green in 14th. A lot of comeback runs right there in the middle of 11th through 15th, with Morse completing the top 15. Nick Radar, nice to see him have a good run. He struggled the last couple of weeks. He'll bring it home 16th. Campbell, as we mentioned, back in 17th. Michael Norman in his debut run here tonight, he's going to finish in 18th. And Dallas Myhan, he will finish 19th on the lead lap, but looks like that he and Campbell will probably be the two inside the top 5 in points that are going to take a hit as far as the point standings are concerned.
Yeah, we were wondering when that bad luck was going to hit for Campbell, and it looks like it was here at Auto Club when it finally struck. Another driver, with Christopher Morris Jr., we're finishing in 15th place. That driver never had, it looked like major issues, but it looked like he got into the wall maybe a couple of times during this race. And with that aero damage, really hurt the 3 machine on the longer run.
And a lot of drivers inside of the top 10 struggled here tonight. Some towards the beginning of the race, some in the closing stages of the race. We already mentioned Myhan. Blaine Akin finished out of the race. He came into this event 6th in points. Jason Houndshow was involved in that lap 2 incident. He was 8th in points. Anthony Guarneri with an early DNF. He was 9th in the standings. And Bo Brady, last week's winner, finished 1 lap down here tonight, back in the 21st position. He came into this race 11th in points. So Auto Club here tonight, despite the fact that it was a long green flag run, a lot of green flag racing, a couple of incidents in between that didn't necessarily bring out the yellow, certainly played its part into who was going to have good points days and who was not.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting on how the drivers are going to react after today's race. If we're going to be seeing drivers able to make a comeback with the next couple of races, as this season is based off the points altogether throughout the season. There's no playoffs. So you have to run well throughout the entire season. Who's going to rebound and who's just going to continue to be in a slump?
It's all about consistency, and it's all about avoiding the bad luck. And right now, heading down the home stretch, it's starting to look like maybe Whitendorf is going to mount a charge. We're going to have to see what Campbell does next week. As you mentioned, 2 for 2 at the mile and a half tracks. Let's go down trackside, get some interviews with some of our top 3 finishers. Let's kick things off with 3rd place running Robert Kenny. Hey, Robert, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Man, great run for you here tonight. Only your 2nd start of the season, I do believe, and you bring it home with a podium finish. We were watching the pace between you and the other 2 drivers ahead, and little by little, you were a tick quicker each and every lap. If you'd had maybe a couple more laps to work with, you think you could have gotten up there and stolen this one away from the both of them?
It was definitely a possibility, but I saw I was catching them. I kind of got a little impatient, started driving a little harder than I should have, so I kind of drove the front tires off. So then I just kept pace with them for like the last 5 laps or so. But no, it was these cars are a lot more fun than I remember them being. It's just I know it's only the second time racing in this league, but I think I might stay here for a while longer.
Yeah, Robert, it was a solid day for yourself here. Coming to the end, it was solid, but you started off being involved in that wreck. You had to come in, get repairs done. How was it trying to come back from the damage from that first lap?
Well, it was made a lot easier by the league admins hosting a practice race on Friday. I could kind of judge what the race would do off of that. And it taught me that I needed to be patient on throttle, and as long as I keep the front tires alive with some life, I'll be able to keeps corner speed up pretty well. So once I got involved in that first lap instant, it was just all right. Just take it easy. We'll eventually drive up there. Maybe not top 5 or top 3 if it goes green all the way, but you'll get up there top 10. And then the caution came out right as I pit, so it was kind of perfect timing for me to be on fresh tires and towards the front of the field still.
Well, Robert, great performance here tonight. Third place run at Auto Club. Congratulations on your first top 5 of the season and only your second start. We're turning the microphone over to you now for some shout-outs.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for putting on great broadcasts. No matter what the league is you're broadcasting. League admins for putting on the races every week. And then just the Luminary guys, all of them race pretty clean. Sometimes there's fireworks here and there, but most of the time we're pretty clean. Then just Sim Speed Shop and G Fuel and all the sponsors on all the cars.
That's Robert Kenny. He brings it home third place here tonight at Auto Club, finishing third to the runner-up finisher. That is John Whitendorf, who we're going to talk with now. Hey, John, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Got you loud and clear.
Well, man, I mean, so close to being able to pick up your first win of the season, but a dominating performance for you in the first half of this race. We saw you take the lead back again after that caution came out, but then you had the 38 on your back bumper. I got like a twofold question for you. First off, how much did tires come into play here between yourself and the 38? Was there a cat and mouse game in terms of trying to save the tires for the end?
Yeah, there definitely was. When he came up on me, I was just kind of riding just to run out the clock, and then he caught me. I wasn't really too concerned about him passing me at that point. I was just gonna try and get some separation. I didn't really want to race him and have the guys behind us catch up, but I just rode around for a little while and kept it close, and then turned it up a little bit, caught him a little bit, and then he turned it up, and he was just faster.
Yeah, we saw that you closed the gap up on him there, and we were thinking that was going to be the challenge for the lead. You spent most of your time out in front, so you had that clean air. Did dirty air come into play here with you, the ability of you being able to, first off, draft up to him and then also be able to make a move to get that lead back and eventually the win?
I know this is an aero track and everything, but I didn't really spend enough time in traffic so I can really make a decision on that. I mean, it probably did a little bit, but I didn't really think it was too bad out there.
Yeah, I mean, John, when that late caution came out, what was going on through your brain? Because it looked like you had the car to run down Kyle Johnson, who had that 3-second lead, and then it looked like everyone else behind you, they were going to be struggling to catch up to you. What was going through your mind then?
Yeah, I think I was kind of surprised first about how far ahead I was of some of the guys that I was concerned about, like Gerald and Jake. I think they made one or two of them might have pitted a lap or two earlier than I did, so I was concerned about that a little bit. But I was running down Kyle about second a lap, it looked like. So I was really excited to see that, and yeah, I was really disappointed that caution came out. It looked at the time that it came out, I think most of it was cleared up already, so it kind of seemed like it was kind of pointless.
Well, John, nonetheless, a runner-up finish here tonight, and after we saw the late issues from the 25, this is certainly going to help you in your quest to cut into that points lead going into next week's race at Texas. So congratulations on that. We're going to now let you do some shout-out sponsors and thank yous.
Yeah, I just want to thank Chris and everybody. You guys have FRN for putting this together. It was a lot of fun out there tonight, and should be fun next week.
Well, that's John Whitendorf, second place here this evening under the lights at Auto Club Speedway. And last but not least, we're going to go down to victory lane. Last week, second place. This week, race winner at Auto Club, and that's Shane Terrian. Hey, Shane, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network booth. You got us?
I got you.
Well, first off, man, congratulations on the victory. We documented that last week you almost were able to pull off first start, first trip to victory lane. Had to wait a week later, but made that move there on the 33 of John Whitendorf and never looked back. I asked him if there was a cat and mouse game going on between yourself and him as to who was going to have the better tires, the better grip, the better speed at the end of this race. What was the strategy from being out in front in that 38 machine?
Not wear my right front out. That's what I did. So I was catching them when I started. I don't even know where I restarted after I pit, but I would catch him by like 8/10, then lose it, and then I would have to catch him again. But it was just because I wore my right front out. But I knew he had older tires. I knew as I got past him, he was going to save him. So when I got in front of him, I was just riding. I got to about half a second, then I saw he pulled up to 3/10. I was like, all right, time to go, and that's what I had to do. But this week I didn't have to fight caution, so I got to see exactly what I could do there at the end. So that was good. I'm glad that paid off.
The last couple of weeks we've done single car qualifying. Here tonight, it was group qualifying. Everybody going out there and laying down lap times. You chose not to lay down a lap time, started towards the rear of the field. We know this track can hold them 5 wide, but it looked like at the most part, maybe 3 grooves were being used this evening. How difficult was it to slowly, methodically work your way up to the front?
Well, I did try and qualify, but I actually wasn't going to actually finish my lap. I just wanted to see what I could do. Because I'm still kind of new to these cars, so I've been wanting to start in the back, race around people. I know it's probably not the safest route, but I wanted to race around people, learn the track better, learn what moves I can do. So when I do get to the front, I know what my car can and can't do. So that's what I've been doing. Probably going to keep doing that. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't have a lot of experience in these cars, so that's why I haven't been qualifying or been starting in the back. So.
Yeah, Shane, I mean, when we saw that first caution came out, you came in early, tried to top off your tank full of fuel. Were you hoping that it would go green like it did so that you could stay a little bit further out, or was it tires that made you have to come into the pits when you did?
So I would have been able to stay out longer, but I wore my right front so much I had to start braking. And of course, when you use the brakes, you use more fuel. So luckily, I was able to be out there, I think 2 or 3 more laps than the leader was. So it did pay off when the caution came out. So yeah, I was hoping I could stay out a lot longer and then hound the leaders down. But ultimately, it paid off with that caution. I thought for sure Kenny was going to have something because the caution came out when he was coming off pit road. So it was like he had just pit and he was like 2 lap fresh tires than me. So, but I think his damage or the traffic didn't pay off. I just had to get to the front. I know Gerald's good. I know John was good. So I was like, I got to pass these guys now and then just save my tires and see what happens.
Well, once again, Shane, congratulations on the victory here this evening and your second start of the season here in the G-Force Grand National Series. We're going to hand the microphone over to you now for some shout-outs.
Yeah, I want to thank the guys for letting me in. It's been fun. Totally different than what I'm used to. Of course, Evo Controllers, the Luminary guys, a good finish for us. I'm not sure where everyone finished. I know Bronson and Kenny finished 3rd and 4th, I believe. I don't know where Tom finished. I think 11th, something. And then, of course, you guys for broadcasting. I still got it up every race. So I'm going to keep doing that because it's fun, especially if I don't know what's going on the track. I just look down. If I hear yelling or if someone says there's a wreck, I look down and see what happens. So thanks for that.
Well, that's Shane Terry, and only his second start of the season, and it's his first trip to victory lane here. Congratulations once again, Shane. Go enjoy it.
Thank you.
Well, the longest track that these drivers have been to date, the race is in the books. Shane Tyrion up there at the top of the leaderboard. But, Sam, you alluded to this a little bit already. Weitendorf closed in that points gap, but heading into Texas next week, is it back advantage Gerald Campbell?
I would like to say it is, but Weitendorf also has been very consistent at almost every track we've been to. He's been got up into a wreck. That's the only reason he hasn't been running exactly where Campbell has been. But both those drivers have been right on top of each other at short tracks, mile and a halves. And even here today, it looked like Weitendorf had an opportunity to gap himself, which he did. But going back to a mile and a half, it's going to be close racing. But like we've been seeing the last couple of weeks and almost all season long, newcomers come in every single week. And it seems like we've been seeing a lot more of those newcomers up front. Shane Terrian, Robert Kenny, and Bronson Stafford, they just came in the last 2 weeks, and they're showing that they've got the pace to be up front, top 10, top 5 cars, and even today, win some races here this season.
Well, we saw some close racing here tonight. A lot of great battling all the way through the field, inside of the top 10, outside of the top 10. But at the end of the night, Shane Terrian is the winner of the California 150 presented by Vape Pub. Next week, it is going to be Texas Motor Speedway just before Christmas, 133 laps under the lights at that D-shaped mile-and-a-half racetrack for the Smartway Remodeling 200. Should be a good one there. It'll be interesting to see if drivers will carry momentum from tonight over to that race, or if drivers that maybe struggled here tonight at Auto Club will be able to get their momentum turned around and maybe see another new driver go to victory lane next week. As a matter of fact, I believe we are currently on a little bit of a streak right now. We've had 2 first-time winners here in the past 2 weeks, including tonight. So maybe that streak will continue. But a great one here tonight at Auto Club. Sam, appreciate you joining me.
It's always a pleasure to be up in the booth with you, Seth.
Thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight. We hope you enjoyed our coverage here of the G-Force Grand National Series. Once again, we'll see you guys next week at Texas Motor Speedway. For Samuel Dyer, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.